Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. So I want to just kind of start off firing out of the gate here. I want to get this out of my head while I still have it fresh in my head, because I'm watching a whole bunch of content, trying to, just gather up data and form opinions and whatnot. And I'm watching a guy who picked the Vikings at, not to win, but at plus 2.5. I don't really care that he did that. That's not really the issue. But sometimes it's not that, it's the explanation. It's the reason behind it that kind of gets me thinking through some stuff. So let me just start off by saying this. The Vikings have been unbelievably impressive. It's not even a question. I will say, as much as I'm still unsure of the Packers, I do not believe, still at this point, the Vikings are going to end this season as a top football team. I have looked at their roster top to bottom, and there's nothing that I'm looking at now that I looked at prior to the season that has changed. Nothing. In terms of like, oh man, actually I missed this, or I didn't miss jack squat. Now, once in a while, you'll have a situation, the 2018 Bears, where everybody has their best season ever. Maybe Darnold and all the receivers and Aaron Jones and, on the defensive side, the pass rushers and the safeties and the linebackers. They all have the best years they've ever had. The corners. I don't think so. I went through the entire team and there's nothing there that I'm terrified of. There are pass rushers who have been massively successful that if they're able to do that again, would not be good. But I honestly do not believe that they're capable of doing that all season because they've never been that good ever. That's also to look at the fact that I watched a good part of that Houston Texans game. And you know what I saw? Every time I turned that game on, the Houston Texans were in the red zone. And you know what happened? The Houston Texans kept shooting themselves in the foot. Penalty after penalty after penalty. And C.J. Stroud looked like, Sam frickin' Darnold. He couldn't hit anybody. Now, maybe it's because it was all the confusion and all the craziness and everything else, and the Texans have just never seen a good defense in their life, and they just didn't know how to handle it. Or maybe it's still early in the season for a lot of teams, and a lot of teams are playing like crap. The 49ers, despite being the 49ers, have obviously not looked like the 49ers. I've been talking about being questionable about the Texans since week 1. Here's the other point, though. And again, last time I underestimated a team like this was the Philadelphia Eagles, because I said, look at how they ended last season. You know the whole thing. Turns out they did turn quite a few things around. I don't even know what they're doing right now. I'm not sure. Maybe they're, what are the Eagles up to these days? They're 2-1. They just, they lost to the Falcons by 1 point. That's it. They also just barely beat the Saints. I don't know, whatever. We'll get back to that. I don't want to give false hope here that the Vikings are terrible and are about to get steamrolled, because whatever they're doing now is working, and can they do it for one more week or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or maybe the end of the season? I don't know. But there's no guarantee that it just ends today. But there is reason to believe it, and let me just give you one reason. The Minnesota Vikings defense has been really hard for teams to figure out. It's been very confusing. It's not very traditional. That is the case, at least, for the teams that the Vikings have played so far. For example, the Giants, obviously a terrible team, the 49ers, and the Texans, which makes sense. This is somewhat uncommon. You know who it's not uncommon for? The Green Bay Packers. It was the first meeting, may I remind you, last year, for the Green Bay Packers against the Minnesota Vikings. The Green Bay Packers scored 10 points against that defense. That was very, very, very difficult. By the end of the season, there was a lot of tape, and they had already had a matchup. The Packers lost that game 24-10. Next time we saw them, it was 33-10 Green Bay Packers. Not only did our defense shut down their offense, but we blew the crap out of that defense. Is it the exact same defense? No. There's some different people, not necessarily better people, but there's different people. And yeah, maybe Flores changed up a couple things. But the foundations of this defense are not foreign to Matt LaFleur anymore. And the last time these teams got together, when they were familiar with each other, in other words, the Vikings understood the Green Bay Packers and the Packers understood the Vikings, what happened? The Vikings wiped the freaking floor with them. Now, maybe that was a fluke. The Vikings were on a heck of a losing streak at that point, whereas the first time we faced them, they were on a bit of a win streak. I don't know. But maybe that's also part of the point. You know, early on when the Vikings were actually winning, there was all this talk about how could they win with these different quarterbacks coming in. It's crazy. It's the same way that Fields is winning in Pittsburgh. When they were on their winning streak, they won in the games that they won. So they were, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They were 6-1 over a 7-week period from week 4 through week 10. 6-1. They lost almost every other game outside of that stretch. But in that stretch, the games that they won, the opponent scored 13, 13, 17, 10, 28, and 19. They only got to 20 points one time. Then they played Denver and gave up 21 and lost. They lost to Chicago, even though the defense only scored 12, which is pathetic. They beat the Raiders when the defense allowed 0 points, and it was close. And then they went on a 4-game losing streak. Why? Because the defense gave up 27, 30, 33, and 30. Again, there's injuries. It's the end of the season. Who knows? Whatever. There's a lot of old people on that defense. Maybe the second time around will be a little bit better for the Packers than these guys, catching them when they're young or not young, but healthy and fresh and everything else. Or maybe it's just that some teams just kind of figured them out as the season went on. It takes a while for things to settle. And when things settle, the surprises are more or less gone. And then it comes down to execution. I know your tendencies. I know what you're going to do. We understand these things. It's kind of like with the whole betting thing. One of the things that sucks about betting early in the season is we don't have good data on teams. But as the year goes on, as long as you've got yourself a good model, a good formula, whatever, you can win money. Or at the very least, you can trust your models to be more accurate if you find something that is against what Vegas has. Whereas now I see something and I'm like, they're probably right, and mine is just stupid and whatever. As much as Flores has changed some things, the foundations of his defense are what they were last year. And they've got 3 weeks worth of tape to figure out how he's utilizing the pieces that he has. Beyond that, there's some data out there that I've been kind of pouring through. And again, he acknowledged it, but he still went against it. He's like, look, the Vikings are better, et cetera, et cetera. Again, that's fine. I get it. And I understand saying the Vikings are better. They are looking fierce. Not mad he made that decision. But the data he went against that a lot of people are looking at, because I was surprised to see, by the way, just so you know, the Packers are favorites. First time this season we're favorites, and it's against maybe our toughest opponent. It's freaking weird. I think it's the assumption about Jordan Love and everything else. But anyways, teams that are 3-0, that are underdogs in week 4, win 25% of the time. That is a shockingly bad situation. Think about that. You're a 3-0 team. That means you must be pretty good. How in any situation do you win 25% of the time? Underdogs in general don't lose 25% of the time. That is something a lot of people that bet are looking at going, that's freaking crazy. Now, it does get better for a couple things. Number one, if you add that it's a divisional opponent, it goes up to 33%, 33.3. They also cover the spread 50% of the time. But if you're just looking for win-loss, that's not a great spot to be in. Here's some more bad news for Vikings fans looking at things historically. A team that is 2-1, that is coming off a 2-game win streak and is a favorite, wins 62.3% of the time. Now, go figure, that's exactly the opposite of the 33%, and these are not, exact opposite things. So there's a 33% chance the Vikings win based on history, and a 62% chance the Packers win based on different history. Again, this is 2-1 teams coming off 2-game streaks that are favorites. Now, again, that number comes way down when it's a divisional opponent. It's down to 52.2, but it's still in favor of the Green Bay Packers. They also do not cover the spread as often. So as far as the spread goes, it might be worth considering if we're just talking betting and all that stuff. The odds are in the favor of the Green Bay Packers. I also dug into it a little bit more. I said, okay, what about 2-1 teams who are on a 2-game win streak against teams that are 3-0. I didn't even say favorite, just generally. 2-1 teams against 3-0 teams. The 2-1 teams win 61% of the time. Here's the ultimate kick in the old calzones, okay? Let's add one thing to that. What thing are we going to add? The 2-1 team is the favorite. So this is the situation we're in. This team is the current favorite. They're 2-1. They're on a 2-game win streak. They're going up against a 3-0 team. Do you know how often the Packers in this situation win this game? 88.9% of the time. 88.9% of the time. If you add in that they're at home, it goes down a little bit, but it's still 83.3% of the time. They cover the spread 67% of the time. This is a historically very big uphill battle for the Vikings. I think a lot of people are looking at the under based on this and whatnot, but I was just curious, in these games, there haven't been that many of them. Going back to the 1990s, there's been 6 instances where you have a situation like this. Again, 2-1 teams on a 2-game streak against a 3-0 team. The 2-1 team is at home and they're favorites. It's happened 6 times. The average score is 35-26. That's a pretty high scoring game. If you add in that it's a divisional opponent, so the exact scenario we're in, it's only happened 1 time in history, and it was last year. Last year was the only time in history this exact situation has played out. The Buffalo Bills were 2-1 on a 2-game win streak going up against the 3-0 Dolphins. The Bills are at home. The line was almost identical. Last year it was -3. This game is -2.5. That game ended with the Bills winning 48-20 against the 3-0 Dolphins. Doesn't have to mean anything. It's 2 common opponents. Divisional games are weird. Packers are a weird team right now that I can't even put my finger on. The Vikings are a weird team I can't even put my finger on. I just wanted to point out a couple things here. Again, number one, and it's going to take me a while to come around to it. Even if they beat the Packers, I'm not going to be a believer in the Vikings. It's going to take a while for that to happen. Number one, I'm going to need to see these players play better. The fact that they don't really have any superstars that they've added, right? So there's nothing new to this team that's like, oh, that's why. The fact that their superstars are not actually playing that well and that their quarterback is getting worse every week, and one of the guys on the defense is playing the best is the guy that's 35 years old and is clearly declining. No, I'm not a believer yet. And I do think that if we can get a good game together at home with a quarterback that's playing well and a head coach that knows how to put together a game plan against this exact defense full of guys that are very beatable with an offensive line that gives up less pressures and sacks than almost any offensive line in football, while being one of the most blitzed offensive lines in football. Yeah, I think there's a chance. I would say there's a chance. There's a lot of ifs in there, but yeah, I'd say there's a chance. And on the flip side, what do we have? We have a defense that is very disruptive and very opportunistic against an offensive line that, I'll be honest, is kind of terrible. I like their tackles. They're not playing quite as well as they have in the past, and some of the statistics are downright terrible as far as the pressures being given up. But the interior offensive line is what I'm talking about, and it's borderline disastrous. And if Hafley feels like it, he can send those linebackers all day long. He can stunt and twist. He can send safeties. He can send linebackers, all the stuff to confuse those guys on the inside and just wreak havoc on a quarterback who has demonstrated his ability to be terrible every single year he's been in the NFL. And yes, I know the Jets are a bad football team and development is probably not very likely. And I understand that's very true of the Carolina Panthers as well. However, he stopped with the San Francisco 49ers, which do not fall into the same category as the Jets and the Panthers. And you know what we saw? The exact same Sam Darnold. A guy that has maybe 2 to 3 games a year that are elite, unbelievable, amazing. And after that, nothing. So he got one of those games in week 1 and we haven't seen it since. This is not an unusual Sam Darnold necessarily. We got to see how the rest of the season plays out. But we can't look at 3 weeks and say, oh yeah, he's definitely better than he's ever been. No, he's not. Not yet. Let's see what happens when we have a defensive coordinator come in that can cause the kind of chaos, to be honest, the same that what their defensive coordinator does. Because not only is it similar in terms of the philosophies of aggression and everything else, but it's similar in its ability to be unusual, to be foreign. It's not just the same old Fangio bullcrap that everybody's seen for the last 5, 6, 7 years, that everybody's been trying to emulate for the last several years, where you can just pick apart the too high bull crap. Anyways, just a couple thoughts. Am I confident? Absolutely not. I'm not. I can't put my finger on what the Packers are. I haven't seen Jordan Love play a good game this season. Doesn't mean he's bad. It just means he played one game, it was ugly, and then he went out. And by the way, I don't even know that he's going to be the quarterback in this game. I'm starting to assume like everybody else is assuming. And by the way, let's just recap the assuming, because remember, I come from a different place than everybody else. Most people looked at this and said after like a week, he can play. At the same time that everybody else in the media is saying they're shooting for week 5 return. Then he comes in and is questionable. And everybody loses their mind. He might actually play. It could actually happen. Oh my goodness. And he didn't play. He didn't play after 1 week. He didn't play after 2 weeks. But the assumption was, he's looking good. He's feeling good. He's definitely going to play in this next one. Why? Why is he definitely going to play in this next one? How do we know that? Well, look how good he looked this good last week and he didn't play. Remember when it was like, I don't think he's going to play, and then right before the game he goes out and he's looking good and he's warming up and they're like, they want to see if he's ready. It's crazy. And then the whole thing was, well, if he doesn't play in this game, he's definitely playing in the next. How do you know that? Yeah, it's significantly more likely. But the bottom line, first of all, let's not forget my whole position on this. It's all subterfuge. It's all bullcrap. It's all just a show. Him going out and prepping for that game last week, I don't think it had anything to do with going to see if he's actually going to play. I think it had more to do with getting people to say exactly what they said. He's definitely playing against the Vikings. Why do they want people to say that? Because they want the Vikings to think he's definitely playing against the Vikings. They want everyone to be positive that he's playing in this game, which is exactly what you'd want if he's not playing in the game. Again, I do believe that they don't exactly know, but I also think it's entirely possible that when we were first told by Ian Rappaport that they're shooting for week 5, that they meant that they're shooting for week 5. And it's entirely possible that there's nothing medically wrong with him just running around on a field a little bit as long as he's got his brace on. It's not a big deal, but that has nothing to do with the pain and the healing. The healing is what matters. And if he's not healed, he's not going to play. And that's the bottom line. Just throwing that out there. Why don't we take a break? Just a couple things I wanted to get off my chest. We'll be right back. All right, for fun, let's look at a couple more of these bad boys, shall we? Green Bay Packers versus the Minnesota Vikings when the Packers are the favorites. Packers win 61.4% of the time. Let's be more specific. Packers at home against the Vikings, and they're favorites, but the favorite is between 2 and 3 points. So that cuts off when the Packers are 10-point favorites. It gets rid of anything, 1 point or whatever. Haven't been a massive amount of these, but the Packers win 71.4% of the time. Now, it's interesting because if you remove the home field advantage, it's only about 52% of the time. So when it's only a, let's say, 2.5 point margin, Packers do win most often, but in Lambeau, 71.4%. Last time the Vikings won in this situation was September 18th, 2016. The Packers were, what? Let me see. 3-point favorites. Aaron Rodgers versus Sam Bradford. Eddie Lacy versus Adrian Peterson. What a clash, huh? James Starks, Randall Cobb, Jordy Nelson, Jared Cook, Devontae Adams, Richard Rodgers. What a crew. The other side, you got Sam Bradford, Adrian Peterson, Matt Asiata, Jerick McKinnon, Stephon Diggs, Adam Thielen, Kyle Rudolph. Man. Cordero Patterson. Let's go. Packers had Julius Peppers, Mike Daniels, Clay Matthews. I'm just reminiscing here. What a good time. What a good time. Unfortunately, the Vikings won 17-14. But look, I feel like we've kind of covered all the angles here. As far as, the whole keys to the game thing, we kind of covered it, man. I mean, you got two defenses that are playing an aggressive style, and it's been paying off. The Packers are high risk, high reward, and it's been lots of turnovers, lots of sacks. Exact same thing for the Vikings, but these are, semi-common opponents. Vikings maybe not as familiar with Halfley, but they are familiar with LaFleur. LaFleur's familiar with them, et cetera, et cetera. Aaron Jones is a huge wild card in this game. I mean, I don't know what his deal is with Dallas, but that guy could win entire games. Packers' 2-point advantage could be erased by Aaron Jones just going freaking demon mode. And the Packers have struggled against that. As far as giving up big gains here and there, and we know Aaron Jones is very capable of hitting those. On the flip side, Packers are doing a good job running the ball, but the Vikings are doing a good job of stopping it. Not that running is going to be the be-all, end-all in this game, but, the first things first, it comes down to Jordan. And, I'll be honest, I've been saying it's on the other side of 50%, and it still is, but it's starting to drift down for me a little bit. It's like 55, 60% for me. And one of the biggest things, and Ian Rappaport touched on this, and just his tone the last time he talked about it, sounded very much like he doesn't expect him to play. He said, we're at week 3. This is essentially the starting point for when maybe he could have come back, which is exactly the whole point. All that stuff before about him coming back early was fake. Even if the team and some other people actually thought maybe it could happen, it's maybe in the same way that maybe, Aaron Rodgers could have played at the end of last year. And this is week 1 of maybe. Remember, 3 to 6. 3, 4, 5, 6, in that range. The other thing Ian Rappaport said, again, his tone just saying, it's great that he got to this point and that he looks really healthy and all that stuff. I mean, it's all just like consolation prize bull crap. In fact, let me just play it for you so you don't think I'm just being negative for the sake of being negative.
Well, a couple things. First of all, no one has definitively told me that he is definitely playing, which does mean at least, I don't know, they're going to give it to 90 minutes before kickoff. I think that's what Malafor said, and we knew on Saturday last week that Jordan Love was not going to play, but at least they're going to give it more time. The fact that he has gotten better is a good thing. The fact that he is as close as he has ever been is a good thing. It's 3 weeks now, which is really the start of when playing is, at least a consideration. But he hasn't actually had a full practice yet, and he would be a rare player coming back from injury who did so without being a full practice. That at least makes you think that the Packers are not sure whether or not Jordan Love, as of right now, is going to play. I would also say the fact that Malik Willis has played really, really well, kind of resurrected his career. I do wonder a little bit if this lets the Packers say, you know what, if Love is at 100,000% ready to go, maybe we just ease back. It's a long season. All of that being said, I'm with you. I think there's a better chance this week than last week. It just does not sound to me like there's been a firm decision for the Packers. All
right, so again, if you think I'm just being pessimistic based on what he said, and the thing is, everything he said is true. My whole orientation toward feeling like 95% he's going to play is all based on the Twitter hype machine. And that one report that came out by one insider who said week 1 he was close, which again, okay. Aside from that, it sounds like a whole bunch of, oh my goodness, he might play based on the fact that he's been limited in practice, which has nothing to do with his injury. The fact of the matter is, as long as he's wearing his brace, it's not going to be detrimental to have him practice in a limited fashion. So he can do that limited for as many weeks as he needs to. As far as him getting closer, show me one step he's taken since day 1 when he first came out there limited. He hasn't. And as Ian Rappaport said, has he taken a single full practice yet? No. Why? Because he's not ready. On Friday, he was not ready and equipped to play in full. He's never had a full practice. He wasn't ready on Friday. If he's not ready to practice, he's not ready to play. So we're waiting on Saturday and Sunday morning for it to switch from he's not ready to he's ready. And like he said with Malik, listen, when he goes down, the fact that he went down and we are now 2-0, I think if you would have said we don't have Jordan for 3 weeks and we go 2-1, I don't think the Packers would be too upset about that. Beyond that, again, he needs to be 100%. Do we think he's going to be 100% in like 36 hours? Call it 48 if you want. Is that going to make the difference between not ready and 100% ready? Let's say he is at 99%. Wouldn't it be better to let Malik go out there and play the Vikings and then have Jordan come out on Monday and practice in full for an entire week leading up to the next week? I'm not saying it's what I want, because it's not. I want him to be 100% healthy, and I want him to go out there and perform well, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just saying, I was at 75%. That shot up to about 90 just because everyone's talking as though he's playing. It's almost as if I forgot it was a possibility that he might not. And now I'm sitting here looking at it going, where's any evidence that he's going to play? Like anything outside of the hype machine. Even Matt LaFleur, when he's asked about it, he gets huffy. He's limited. He's limited. Shut your freaking mouth. He's limited. Don't talk to me about it. He's not happy about it. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, and if it is Malik, then we're talking about a different game plan. And it does become more worrisome because, you know, when I watch all the clips of the Minnesota Vikings and how complicated they are, I think, yeah, but I don't know about all that. And the reason I say that, you know, again, I saw somebody post a video of, you know, they put a lot of guys on the line and then they drop a bunch. You know, they end up usually rushing 4, sometimes 5. But the point is, you don't know who's coming and who's going. Here's the problem, though. It's not ideal for a guy to be in coverage starting at the line of scrimmage. And the fact of the matter is almost every one of the videos he showed was a completion. So it's not actually that beneficial. A linebacker trying to cover a guy like, for example, Luke Musgrave or Jaden Reed across the middle of the field, when you're starting at the line of scrimmage, you have almost no chance. So it's a matter of getting those pass rushers there almost immediately. So it's not necessarily the best thing. However, again, you put a guy like Malik in there, it could be complicated. You got to make extremely fast reads. You got to know exactly who to go to. And if there's any amount of confusion or disruption or whatever, with guys coming and going and then, you know, mixing coverages, whatever, there's an opportunity for pressures, errant throws, tips, picks, whatever. But at the same time, Matt LaFleur likes to counter all that crap with, you know, whatever you're doing, we're gonna find a way to exploit it. So if you want to stand on the line, that we're gonna cause problems with you for that. First thing I could see him want to do is give the ball out to Jaden Reed and let him work in space where there's basically no linebackers to be able to help because they're screwing around at the line of scrimmage. Zero chance they get to Jaden Reed as he works his way up the field. So you got 8 guys on the line. Cool. That leaves 3 in coverage. Assuming 1 is on the other side of the field, that leaves, 2 guys? The corner on that side where Jaden is and a safety? Go ahead and put 8 on the line. If it was just that easy, everybody just put everybody on the line and it would be confusing and then you know, you'd beat everybody. There's a positive and a negative to everything. So, you know, again, I really just think it comes down to what we've been saying all along. I think we've got 2 defensive coordinators that have been in their bag and it's been successful. I think we got 2 offensive-minded guys that have been deep in their bag and it's been very successful. You got 2 guys that have been operating with quarterbacks that do not have great success, records that are performing at a high level. Now, if we have Malik, that puts us, you could say, at a slight disadvantage, aside from the part that they have Darnold. And let's not forget, he's not a good quarterback. So that's a bit of a disadvantage as well. I mean, if we had Love and they had essentially their backup, which he's not really, but I mean, come on, he's a backup at this stage of his career, we would be the ones with the unfair disadvantage. So fine, let Malik play, and we'll go blow for blow, and we'll see how it goes. All right, let's take our final break. Let me check if we have any voicemails. I think we do, and I want to make sure we get these cleaned up before it's too late. Maybe we'll just do this. No, we only got 1 call, so we'll take Trucker Bob's call. Then we'll get into the other games and a couple different betting things that I got brewing around in my brains, and we'll leave it at that. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
Hey, Ryan. This is Trucker Bob.
Hey.
I've just pulled my truck over next to Walker Lake here in Nevada. This is one of the most beautiful spots on earth. There's almost absolutely no light pollution here except for an occasional car that drives down the road. As I stand here overlooking the lake, I can look up at the sky. There's not a cloud in the sky. I can literally see thousands and thousands of pinpoint stars up in the sky. You can see the Milky Way going across the center right above my head. And whenever I run this route through the center of Nevada out here in the middle of nowhere, I always pull over in this one pullover spot because I can sit here for hours and just look up at the sky and see these beautiful stars shining on the lake, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. So I'm just enjoying the moment here with you and your fans. Anyways, talking football, last year when Jordan was coming out to be our quarterback, it was going to be his first year as a full-time quarterback, we discussed this concept that, hey, we've got this running game. We got Jones and we got Quadzilla. We got a decent offensive line. We have a lot of good players on our defense, and maybe our defense and running game is going to carry the season for us. And we're slowly going to break Jordan in. It never happened. It was just one thing, penalties, offensive line was all upset. The defense never was anywhere near as good as we were hoping it would be. Now here we are the next year. Jordan gets hurt, and our defense just carried the team the last two games. And the quarterback, our backup, Willis, was able to rely almost exclusively on the running game to get us to victory. I just thought it was a unique perspective to sit here and think, hey, wow, we're actually doing this year what we thought we'd do last year. Anyways, that's my comment. Trucker Bob out.
Well, it was very peaceful and serene. I was pulling up some pictures of that place as you were talking. It does look really nice. I'm not going to lie. That whole area to me is, I feel like it's a secret that nobody wants to talk about. Just Utah, Nevada. It's just like, oh, it's really, really beautiful out here. But don't worry, you just go to New York, a freaking trashy, crowded, angry place. Everybody just cram in that tight little area, and don't worry about what we got going on out here. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, it looks amazing. But yeah, things never really go as we expect, and I think that's been the case every game this year, where I expected the offense and everything to look really good in Brazil, and it was kind of sloppy and crappy. I was hoping the Eagles would look like the end of the season as opposed to the early season. That did not happen. When Jordan went out, I expected to lose to the... I don't know if I expected it, but I thought there was a good chance we lose to the Colts. We didn't. Thought there was a decent chance we lose to the Titans, and we didn't. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know how that translates into this game. Again, I've been wrong about everything, so maybe expect Jordan to play. I don't know. It is interesting, though, real quick, just pulling up last year, the time the Packers won that game. Jordan Love was 24 of 33, 256 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 72.7% completion percentage, 125.3 passer rating. Aaron Jones had 20 carries for 120 yards, 6 yards per carry. Our leading receiver in that game, Bo Melton. You know why? Christian Watson wasn't in the game. So Christian Watson was the solution in that game. Now, unfortunately, I don't know if that's going to be the guy with Malik and everything out, but that's the route they went. They went with the deep shot guy, Bo Melton, 6 receptions, 105 yards, and a touchdown. Aside from that, it was Jaden Reed underneath. 8 targets, 6 receptions, 89 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Tucker Kraft also had a pretty big game, 6 of 6 for 48 yards. Romeo Doubs was 3 of 6 for 28. Aaron Jones had 1 reception for 10 yards. Malik Heath had 1 for 13 yards. Just wonder if they're looking at something similar, if they're going to want Jordan or Malik to kind of uncork it a little bit. We'll see. Again, that's one of the problems you have when everybody's on the line of scrimmage. It's hard to cover really fast guys running down the field. Well, I was about to move on to the part where we talk about the other games, but just as I take a peek, I'm seeing a lot of people saying he's back. So there must have been some kind of news somewhere as I search. Adam Schefter. After being inactive the past 2 games, Packers quarterback Jordan Love is expected to be active Sunday versus the Vikings per a league source. Now, again, who knows, but generally when it gets to the point of Schefter, Ian, I don't think they're going to put this out unless they feel pretty confident about it. Let's see who else has been putting stuff out here. The Badgers are playing right now too, so there's a ton of that news. Apparently things are not going well, which, I mean, what the heck did you expect? Vikings elevated Bo Richter and Robert Tonyan for tomorrow against the Packers. All right. Get to see Bobby Tonyan back. They've had some tight end issues for sure. Put that on pause for 1 second. Did you see, by the way, this is something else that just came. I'm trying to wrap this up, and all of a sudden stuff is happening. The Green Bay Packers running back Josh Jacobs was fined $45,020, of course, for unnecessary roughness and use of helmet last week. The guy frickin' lowered his shoulder to impact somebody and hit him in the midsection. I'm sorry. He's about to collide with a guy and he lowers his shoulder, which is exactly what the heck he's supposed to do, and he's getting fined. I figured out exactly why they're doing this, by the way. They're doing it because if you really slow it down, he lowers his helmet and hits a guy in the chest. And that's scaring the crap out of the NFL. They're scared that he's going to hit him right in the chest and his heart's going to stop and we're going to have a bad situation again. This is stupid. This is going to happen. You cannot fine people for playing football with no malice whatsoever. I mean, it's just absolutely the wrong thing to do. And again, these are people that run the NFL that do not prioritize the NFL, and that to me is a problem. It just is. And I don't think it's going to change. You know, I blame Roger Goodell. A lot of people think that Roger Goodell is just a puppet of the owners, and that very well may be the case. I don't know. It's just unbelievable to me. It's so obvious that there was no malice in this. It's so obvious to me that he's just playing good football. He's doing exactly what he's supposed to do. The guy that he hit did not get hurt. In fact, he helped him up and gave him a pat on the back after the play. Again, this is all optics. They saw a runner hit a guy in the chest, and so they want to fine him so they can tell everybody how much they care. And it's this whole, like, nanny mommy mentality of, like, we have to make it stop. We have to do something. It's not going to fix anything. If you don't like it, just quit football. It's like all these frickin' people who talk about it's too violent. We got to get this out of the sport. Go watch something else. Go watch tennis. Go watch golf. If you can't handle this, go do something else. We got to get it out of the game. We got to get it out of the game. Get what out of the game? Football? You're trying to get football out of the game? It's sickening. It's listen, the whole issue with A.J. Dillon, I mean, there's a couple, but one of the big ones is he's an upright runner. He needs to get low and he needs to drive. We got Josh Jacobs because he's exactly that guy. He comes in here, he does exactly what we ask. He plays great football. This running style is what's going to make him a great running back for us in Green Bay. And the NFL is saying, nope, you're not allowed to do that anymore. You're not allowed to lower your shoulder and drive your shoulder into another human being as a running back. This is sickening. I think they should challenge this ruling, and I think they should fine the idiots who said that he should be fined $45,000. I was talking to my half-Mexican attorney. He said we should start a GoFundMe, and I don't disagree. I would have no problem with us throwing a bunch of money together, but I think we should start going after these people who are going after football. They're trying to take football away from us. We tolerate the kickoff thing because they told us there'd be a ton of kickoffs, so they completely decimated a great tradition that we've had for years, which they already ruined when they moved the kickoff up so that there'd be no more returns. And they said, okay, how about this? Because people are, and they didn't even do it because they want to help the game. They did it because they still thought it was too violent. They completely reworked the thing. So now the beauty of the kickoff is completely done. We accepted it because we were told something was going to happen, and it's not happening. They're just ruining every facet of the freaking game. And now all we do is we sit around and we watch flags get thrown where all the freaking nannies are out there throwing flags. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. That's not nice. You can't do that. Shut the F up. God, I'm so sick of this. I understand football players make a lot of money, but I'm not going to trivialize $45,000 for the sake of posturing. They just stole $45,000 out of that man's pocket that he earned. I think that's sickening, and I don't care how much money he makes. That's sickening. Anyways, Tom Silverstein Let's see. First, he said the Packers did not elevate quarterback Sean Clifford to the game day roster, meaning it's likely Jordan will make his first start since injuring his knee in the season opener. The Packers elevated cornerback Kamal Hayden and cornerback Robert Rochelle. Dude, what about my guy? Really bad news for our corners, by the way. It's another thing people have been kind of talking about in the midst of Badger game, the fine, and Jordan Love. I mean, that sounds like it's going to be a pretty big problem. And considering the situation that we have with Jair and trying to shut down Justin Jefferson, that job becomes infinitely harder if you do not have Jair and whoever else is not going to be playing in this game. Anyways, he then followed that up by saying Love is starting Sunday against the Vikings, a source said. Love said during the week that he was close, and apparently he wasn't exaggerating. Unsaid is that cornerback Jair Alexander's status might not be good. Packers elevated 2 corners. Also, I know it's basically established, but I got to read it because it just feels good. Ian Rappaport says he's back. Packers quarterback Jordan Love is expected to return to the lineup against the Vikings 3 weeks after spraining his MCL. So, again, they're going to use language like expected, all that kind of stuff. I don't think I've ever seen Ian Rappaport post something like he's back, and then it turns out, oh, never mind, the source was bad. Other people, maybe, when you got Ian and Schefter just putting the stamp on it, I'm feeling confident. It sucks that I went on that whole diatribe about not feeling confident, but I'm not deleting it because that was like 25% of the whole podcast. So, it stays. What else are we talking about here? Well, I think we're caught up on all the news. So let's go through the games real quick. By the way, I mentioned before I'm starting to do more on the Substack. I've been putting out betting advice, sort of what I'm planning on doing, a little bit behind the scenes in terms of strategy, whatever. If you're interested in that, I also put a AI podcast on on there, just for on Patreon and on the Substack, I think. So I don't know. I'm trying different stuff, trying to be more engaged on there. But anyways, Broncos Jets, don't super care. Jets are 8-point favorites in that game. Pretty understandable why that is the case. Bengals Panthers, only interesting because of the Andy Dalton situation, especially since it's Bengals. It's his old team. Bengals being 4.5-point favorites, and we'll see. Eagles Buccaneers, kind of surprised to see Eagles only 3-point favorites. Again, just kind of as things settle, you start to see some interesting things. The Eagles, not really sure what we got there. Tampa Bay, probably better than what people thought. It's kind of an interesting dynamic. Bears are 3-point favorites. I wildly dispute that claim. In fact, if you saw the betting article I put out, I actually have the Rams as favorites in that game, so I am going to be betting that. Saints Falcons. Again, I mean, these games matter, but I don't know in which direction yet. It seems like the Saints are kind of trending in that big direction, but at the same time, Falcons are 2.5-point favorites. So who knows? We'll let it sort out as it goes. Texans Jaguars, I do not care. Packers Vikings, obviously we've talked about. Steelers Colts doesn't matter, aside from, boy, it would be funny if the Bears lose and the Steelers go on to go 4-0. And they probably will because it's the Colts. Oh, my goodness. 49ers are 10-point favorites, up to 10.5 points against the Patriots. You have to assume the 49ers are going to get a little bit of redemption here. They've been down in the dumps. As I've been saying, I'm sure they're going to come back at some point. They got their tight end back. Feels like this is the redemption game. Still, no way in the world would I bet 10.5 points on the 49ers. I don't know what they are yet. Cardinals, Commanders, kind of same thing. They're both NFC. I don't know. I mean, it seems straightforward that you'd be rooting for the Commanders because the Commanders are terrible and the Cardinals are great, except for the fact that the Cardinals kind of look like garbage recently, and the Commanders potentially have a really good quarterback. So we'll see. Chargers, Chiefs, I'm all in on the Chargers. I've said this every year, and for many years, the Chargers play the Chiefs tough. I don't know if that changes because of coaching changes and whatnot. I don't know. I don't know if they have a new DC. I don't care enough to even look. But I do know the Chiefs have struggled historically with the Chargers. It doesn't always mean lose, but underperform in a big way. And with the Chiefs underperforming in general, again, I would expect the Chiefs to win. Would I bet them 7-point favorites? No. 6.5 to 7 is what they're favorited right now. Browns-Raiders, I couldn't care less about a game. Bills-Ravens, very similar, except instead of two bad teams, it's presumably good teams. I'm surprised the Ravens are the favorites in that game. In fact, that's another one. What the heck is going on with my mic? It's another one I dispute. I mean, the Bills are about as dominant as you can get. When you pull your quarterback in the fourth quarter, that's crazy. Kudos to the Ravens for finally getting their first win, which is expected when you're coming off a losing streak like that. That just historically, that's a tough team to play. So I don't know. I'm not saying the Ravens are a bad team, but I just think we've seen more from the Bills. But whatever, do whatever you want to do. Titans, Dolphins, could not care less. Lions, Seahawks is on Monday, so we'll see what happens there. Obviously, we're all big Seahawks fans there. Unfortunately, Lions are 3.5-point favorites. Good news is we'll all have a chance to watch it, along with, and of course they run these concurrently, not exactly at the same time, but one starts at 6:30, one starts at 7:15. I don't know why they do that. But Cowboys, Giants, the absolute funniest thing in the world could happen on Monday. Dallas is just in the complete friggin' dumps. They paid everybody. They're flat broke paying all their superstars, and their team sucks. Now they're going up against one of the worst teams in football, maybe the worst. That was a silly thing to say a while ago when Carolina existed, and I came into the season saying the Giants might be the worst team in football, but, Carolina was always going to be that team. But now, with Carolina at least having a functional quarterback, I don't know, man. But if the Giants can beat a divisional opponent in the Cowboys, that would be the absolute funniest frickin' thing that could possibly happen, aside from the 49ers possibly losing to the Patriots, which, again, I doubt. But boy, would that be funny. So again, if you want to check out a little bit more in depth of what I had to say, packernet.substack.com. You can sign up for free, plug in your email and whatnot. Otherwise, it's game day, folks. So enjoy your day. Enjoy your time with the fam, and I will talk to you later. Have a good one. Bye-bye.